Hey, what up, guys? What up? What up? Hopefully, y'all guys doing good. You know that time of the day, guys. It's Thursday, so we have our weekly streams, and on this Thursday, guys. So I do have a special guest, Kevin Miller. So he's gonna be joining in a few, and so as we I'm gonna ask him a few questions. He's a special guest on today's stream. You're more than free to ask any questions that you may have as well. So he's a software developer, guys, front end, JavaScript. So again, he's gonna talk a little bit about his background, and everything. Hey, good evening. Hey, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for joining. And again, so for the first hour, I'm gonna be interviewing Kevin Miller, and he should have some good things for y'all that hopefully benefits y'all for sure. And then of course in the second half of the stream, we'll start doing what we do, trying to solve some problems. I'll try to answer any questions that y'all may have, and we'll kind of go from there, guys. So again, man, appreciate it, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring in um, our guest. So today's guest, guys, is Kevin Miller. So he's going to talk a little bit about his background on how he got started. Kind of give us his just kind of get familiar on his because the way I see it, everybody has a story, right, on how we get started, and I think it's very beneficial a lot of the time to hear other software developers on their journey, how they got their foot in the door, because not everybody has the same path. Some people have it easier, other people have it harder, but it's always good to kind of get a different views from different people. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to bring them on the stream, and then hopefully those the viewers y'all could maybe bring some benefit to y'all as well. So yeah, guys, we have Kevin Miller, and again, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment, and we'll try to get some of these questions answered as well. So, man, I appreciate it, man. I do appreciate it for being on the stream. I know you invited me on your stream, man, and I'm very appreciative of that. And just kind of talking with you, wanted to kind of bring you on as well because I know I have heard snippets of your background because I do join some of your podcasts that you have had, but of course I have not heard the beginning origins of how you got started, and so yeah, kind of tell us a little bit about your background, like how did you get started?
Sure, man. I appreciate you having me on, Lou. So, initially, I started dabbling with programming. In the '90s, I've always been into games, and I wanted to make my own games. So that kind of resulted in me playing around with, C and this RPG creation engine called Verge. This was all the way back in the '90s, and I found it really difficult programming. There wasn't as many good programming resources back then as there are now. So, programming really intimidated me. I ended up switching from programming and all of that into finance and accounting, and my degree is actually in accounting. But I'm from a small military town named Killeen, Texas, and by Fort Hood. Fort Hood is actually one of the biggest military bases in the world. But the problem is that it's very hard to find a decent paying job. You have to know somebody, and the only great paying jobs are on base. So even though I had this accounting degree, I wasn't able to find a job. So I was working at the Marriott overnight, doing the front desk and night auditing duties, and I never really liked accounting either. So what ended up happening while I was working at the hotel, I was just
Mm-hmm.
teaching myself programming. The cool thing about JavaScript is all you really need is a text editor.
Yep.
You type the code in, and then just open it in the browser. So you don't have to install all this stuff on the computer. So that's kind of like how I was able to dabble around with programming there. And also Excel. I had to do some work with spreadsheets, and Excel has this language called VBA, which is
Yep.
Visual Basic for Excel. And
Yep.
I was able to play around with that and automate all these tasks in the spreadsheets that manually would have taken hours, but just due to me creating a macro, I was able to cut it down to like 20, 30 minutes. So that kind of taught me that programming is very powerful and that it wasn't as intimidating as I thought.
So
So
were you learning that in your accounting days, like learning
actually,
the whole VBA and all of that?
no, actually,
Or was that like once you left accounting and that's kind of where you started like
mm,
I guess your job required you to use Excel and that's kind of where you started learning VBA?
yeah, my
Gotcha.
first hotel job actually, I had to use Excel to do these different reports, and that's where I started dabbling with VBA. My accounting job, when I was in my accounting period, I wasn't doing any kind of programming work, but once I was at the hotel dabbling with the spreadsheets, that's when I started playing around with it, and it was around like 2012, 2013 where you started hearing about all these high-paying programming jobs, and
Hmm.
it was a lot easier to get in back then than it was now because it wasn't so saturated. And you hear about the stuff like you didn't need a computer science degree, you just needed like a demonstration who you were talking about, and you know you just had to show off your portfolio, things like that. So what ended up happening after a few months of me dabbling around with programming on that job, I just ended up quitting my job. And I had about $10,000 saved up. I was staying at home with my parents. I just spent the next year really teaching myself programming and focusing on that nonstop. So,
So what was the job? I know you mentioned JavaScript, right? I mean,
mhm.
first VBA, but then eventually JavaScript. Was that more so because of web? Was that just because at the time that's kind of what you know? I guess the buzz, I guess, was related to JavaScript, or what kind of directed you to JavaScript per se? I guess compared to any other language.
So yeah, there was like Python. I dabbled with that at first, but what really drew me to JavaScript was the fact that I didn't have to install anything on the computer,
Hmm.
and when you create stuff, it's really easy to share with JavaScript because it's in the browser.
Yeah.
So if I'm creating a web page, I can just upload it and everybody can see it. Whereas, if you're creating something with like Python, C, etc., you have to create an executable, and they can't just see it immediately. So JavaScript, it was a pretty familiar language too, like being pretty. It looked pretty much like C, you know. So
Yeah. So you did mention earlier, like I guess before you were an accountant, you were learning C, and you were learning
mhm,
C more so for gaming. I know a lot of people. That's kind of how they dabble into programming as well. Like growing up, like I play video games all the time, right? As well. So
mhm,
of course, it's like I want to build a game, and of course, C. Um, Nowadays, you got C sharp and other languages, but especially back then, C was like the main one of the popular languages for sure to develop games.
yeah, exactly. The difference between like now and back then. Okay, I was back in the '90s, and the level of resources to learn programming wasn't nearly as good, and you know when you're programming games back then, it was really low level.
Hmm.
Uh, they didn't have like a Unity or Unreal Engine like that. You just had to do things on a really base level. So it was difficult for me at that time because one, there wasn't like any school classes that I really knew of that taught programming. And as mentioned before, the resources to learn programming on the web weren't nearly as good. So that's pretty much why I gave up back then. And fast forward about 15 years later, um, JavaScript, all of that. The main thing I really love about JavaScript is if you want to experiment with something,
Hmm.
you just make a small change, upload it, open it in the browser. Like you can see the results of what you're doing immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas, back then you had to deal with like low level graphics and all of that. Like just getting a pixel on the screen was like a major achievement for me back then. So
And just kind of for everybody who's watching as well, in your case, JavaScript more on the front end, not back end JavaScript, but front end, like not server side, but client, pretty much what you're referring
yeah,
to. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Initially, I started with you know front end. I did dabble in the back end, like looking up Node.js, and
Hmm.
I even studied Ruby on Rails and deployed a few apps with that. But professionally, my experience has been entirely with the front end. Professionally, I've been like a front end specialist, but I do like know about the back end, how to do some things on the back end. But I was just never pushed that in that direction in my jobs.
So like now, how many years do you have under your belt? I guess for front end JavaScript.
So professionally, I have over 6 years.
Okay.
I pretty much started when Angular 2 was in beta. That's the framework I picked up, and I've pretty much been using that ever since. Except the 1 year, 1.5 years of React at AT&T.
So how was that switch? Because I know I have like I'm not a like I know JavaScript, but I know it more like just enough to do what I need to do, and then I kind of move on because my I'm not really a front end guy. I'm more of a back end guy, and of course I use Python. But for I know I have got questions from people from some of my viewers asking, for example, like how challenging is it to go from one framework, in this case specifically JavaScript, but from Angular to React. Like you have an experience in Angular, because again I'm not an expert in these frameworks, but I do understand like the concepts of like Angular. It's kind of more, it's like all the bells and whistles kind of all packaged in. Where of course the Vue very lightweight, and then of course the React, but at least to my understanding, it's kind of like in between Vue and Angular when it comes to the functionalities. So how challenging or how easy, I guess, was it to go from one framework to another framework?
So it wasn't super difficult, but there were a little bit of challenges. There's a lot of similarities between the two frameworks, and they're primarily component based. Um, at the time, React was more class based. Now it morphed into something else, more of a functional style of programming. But picking up these frameworks are not that difficult. They do the same things in slightly different ways.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, mhm.
All right. No, that's good. Um, so like I know you mentioned you've been professionally 6 years, right? You've been doing JavaScript front end, but how long have you been coding? I guess
I was
total.
probably coding like a couple of years before I got my first job, and then back in the '90s, but I don't really count that, so I really did too much. So probably around 8 or so years.
Okay, so at least around 2 years under your belt before you got that first dev job. So how was that? Like, I'm kind of interested on that piece. Like, what was your experience? Because you didn't have technically a background, like you didn't have a CS background or any kind of technical degree of any sorts, right? So you kind of came through the past self taught, I guess you want to call it. Um, how was your experience on trying to get that first dev job? I know I actually got a question from a viewer last week on I learned all, I learned JavaScript, I learned HTML, CSS, SAS, pretty much all of the components related to web development, and now they're trying to figure out how do I get my foot in the door. Like,
Okay, yeah,
what was your experience, I guess, on that?
sure. So my experience was like a lot of people trying to get into the industry. You know, you hit up all of these different companies. A lot of them just ignore you because you don't have any experience, or they'll get on a call with you and they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's impressive, but we need somebody with 1 or 2 years of experience." So I had to make a game of trying to get into the industry, right? I had to kind of train my mind to accept rejection. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get 10 no's a day. I'm just blasting resume and information everywhere. And you know, LinkedIn is great once you have experience in the industry, but when you're a junior, you don't have any experience. Nobody, no recruiters are reaching out to you. Nobody really wants to talk to you like that. So I think it was on Indeed or something like that. I just seen this, this job listing, and it had the little fist buzz question. I was like, yeah, let me just try this out. You
Yeah,
know,
I
see
remember those.
and they ended up liking my code, called me in, and I had to drive. I had to go all the way out there to Arlington and do the interview over there. And one of the major things that made me stand out was that I had a programming blog, like on WordPress,
Okay.
and the guy that owned the company, he actually read it and liked what he read. So that was like one of the things that kind of distinguished me. So like on LinkedIn, I'm always telling people visibility matters, and
Hmm.
something that distinguishes you. You have to do something that stands out. Like everybody has the same to-do list, basic projects. What is going to make this person that's interviewing you, or even just looking at you to bring you into the interview in the first place? What's making you look different?
Yep.
And blogs, writing articles on Medium.com, open source projects, and even with this YouTube channel,
Yeah.
uh, those are ways to make you stand out.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's, I mean, I totally agree with that. You kind of have to, especially, I think, especially in today, like today's day and age, with a lot of the big tech companies having layoffs. So now you got a lot of competition as well, right? You got guys that have what you want to call them very elite resumes because of where they're coming from. So depending on what they decide to do, um, sometimes they may have to now drop, go work somewhere that's not a FANG company now. Maybe it's like a financial company, but on the software side, right behind the scenes or whatever. And yeah, there's a lot of competition for sure. So you gotta find the ways to stand out. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I know you mentioned, a lot of sent out a lot of resumes, and that's kind of, I mean, again, my at least the feedback I have kind of given to some reviewers as well, that you got to just be sending resumes like crazy. So your interview, especially since this, did you get a lot of experience? Like, I guess in your interview, was it what you normally hear traditionally? Like, you have a whiteboard test, you have to solve these algorithms that really makes no sense, but it just part of. I mean, whether that did you have to go through that experience, or was it more tuned to the actual job itself? In your case,
The first one, from what I remember, I do remember having to do some whiteboarding thing, and they also pulled up some of my projects on GitHub, and I had to walk them through what I did,
okay,
you know, kind of explain that project, and he talked about my blog, and I believe they asked me some technical questions, but it wasn't like data structures and algorithms. It was just more so to see if I had like the
like
basic programming.
understanding, yeah. Okay, no, which again, that has been my experience as well. Um, I mean, I do know there are companies that I feel like try to mimic some of the big companies. Like they're small companies, but they try to mimic the big companies by putting you through all these tests and so forth. But yeah, at least through my experience in a way, it's been kind of like the way you mentioned it for sure as well. So no,
Yeah,
that's always good to know that not every company is trying to be fancy with their hiring practices for sure.
I kind of feel like a lot of these companies doing themselves a disservice by trying to emulate the bigs because you know they can't compete salary wise with them.
They
So
can't.
how are you gonna put people through something so strenuous? You're just missing out on a lot of talent by like I know people who have like 15, 20 years of experience in the industry, and they can't even pass like some of these data structures and algorithms questions because they don't focus on that. They're focused on more practical things like you know
And I and
spreadsheets.
I hope that changes. Like I kind of feel that even with the big tech companies, right? Your Google and all your fan companies, that I kind of feel they may start, um, going down a different path from that. Like, hopefully in the next couple of years. But again, I mean, I kind of hope they do it sooner rather than later because there are, I feel, a lot of companies that they look up to these companies. So now they're trying to be like, hey, we want to be like them. So we're going to start doing what they're doing. But you're right. I mean, it's like, dude, okay, they're paying their employees like literally like the entry level, you want to call it, with the base salary and then, stock options, all that stuff. It's around like 200K or more, right? That's like entry level. And then once you get into the more, go up a level or two, you're, 300,000 plus. A lot of companies, especially around here, like in the DFW area, you're not paying that kind of money. So, yeah, man. Hopefully, that is something that changes because I do feel like there's a lot of good candidates that are being overlooked because of that, for sure.
Exactly. I don't really even necessarily feel like the leak code style of interview is it really able to discern whether this person's a good programmer. Can they come in and really do the job? It's measuring one aspect of programming, which is like more the efficiency. How efficient can you make codes, and kind of solving those word problems.
Yep.
But do they know SQL? Do they know databases? Do they know how to make all these technologies work together? So you start getting coders who know how to interview well. They don't necessarily know how to code well.
So that's what I was about to say right there. So I think what happens is no difference than what I feel happens when people try to make it into a college. Well, you know the standard, you know what they're looking for. You gotta, especially trying to make it to some kind of elite college, you gotta get straight A's, probably be honor roll, get a high SAT score. That's all it is, right? So I mean, whether it doesn't matter if you're cheating to get the scores or not, but as long as you hit those marks, then that opens up the opportunity to just to be able to get in to that school. It doesn't mean that whatever whatever. I mean, all it means is that you put effort to either memorize very good and just kind of learn just to pass. But at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't see that much value. Like you could have, I see. I have been around people that are very smart, like very book smart, man. They know so much, but in the same time, it's like, and I don't want to like, I don't know how to say this without hopefully not sounding bad, but like they're easily like 50 times smarter than me because they're so smart in everything. They could tell you history, either from science, geography, whatever. Like they have their background, math, all of that, very, very good. But at the same time, it's like, okay, they can't, their job is just a normal random job. They work at a mattress place. Again, nothing wrong where working so like at a warehouse or whatever. But like, dude, you're smart. They just you don't know how to use. I mean, all that smartness didn't. It's not helping from a career standpoint. I mean, maybe it can, but in your case, their case is not. It just does no good just to learn so much stuff just for the purpose of learning. You know, instead of being more focused on something, whatever that is, and then being learning that, right? Whether maybe whatever it is, whether it be coding or whether it be a doctor, it doesn't matter. But whatever it is, right? Being more like tuned into what you're trying to learn, and then get very hyper focused and at least try to be good at that instead of being just good on memorizing everything, but doesn't really come together, I guess.
Interestingly enough, man, I don't really see the innovations coming from the FANG companies, from the big companies. They kind of lucked into one great product early on, and they're just kind of coasting off of that. Google with their search engine, they got Google Maps too, but what else has Google released recently that's just a massive success? You know?
Oh, you're right. I mean, like cloud, they're not dominating cloud. I mean, AWS still dominates, but even then, right? It's not nothing new. Overall, I mean, the basics of cloud has been around for a while. They just a matter of gaining market share, pretty much. I know their stuff. Like every big company does this, and they spend lot of money. Like Meta lost like 2 point something billion on their metaverse, projects that they had. Um, so they're putting money, like they're investing money into stuff, but in the same time, like they weren't the founders of the metaverse or nothing like that. They just kind of jumping on what somebody else established and try to see,
Right.
can we just take up the market share and own it pretty much. But kind of going back what you're saying, you're right. I don't think they're not developing anything. They're just finding what's hot, either buying it out or trying to build something that somebody already built, but then roll it out quick in order to, get market share pretty much.
Exactly, and that's kind of my issue with the interview. They're overlooking a lot of innovative people, who don't have the time or desire to spend on this one specific aspect of computer science. And that's why a lot of this talent is going elsewhere, and you're starting to see all this innovation from these other companies. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and again, like I'm not a fan of like the way they do interviews, like some of the big the fan companies. But I would say though, if somebody's gonna do those kind of interviews with the algorithms, I could see how to some extent maybe it does make sense for them to include it. And I say that more so from just my own experience on working on projects where, you know, I have built small enterprise projects. When I say enterprise for a semi big company, but it was enterprise application. But I have worked on projects where you start dealing with performance issues because of whatever, right? And that's kind of where, especially I know in Google's case, right? You're dealing with billions of requests per minute, perhaps, or whatever. Like that's a lot of data, right? There's a lot going on. So every second, millisecond, matters. So I mean, I could maybe understand to some degree why certain algorithm makes sense
Hmm.
to know how certain things work because maybe you will use it. Like again, but I say maybe
Right.
because you're not going to use it overall through the whole Google's all of the projects that they have. You're probably going to use in very small pieces of it, like Google search to be specific, and maybe some other areas. But there's a lot of different projects they work on that there's no need to go to that level of interview process, you know. And then of course my issue is more like the smaller companies that try to mimic them, and it's like, dude, y'all are nowhere even close to that size. Like you're not building an application that's even getting, you know, hundreds of millions of requests per second or anything close to that. So like, yeah, I don't know, man. That's for me where it becomes very disconnected for sure.
Exactly. Like I feel like you have to cater the interview to what the job requires. Like dealing with huge data sets and performance, that definitely makes sense to focus on data structures and algorithms. If they're making a simple CRUD application, like why do you need like an algorithm, data structures and algorithms master? Like
Exactly, because you're totally right, man. Because you actually don't. So I heard you mention I think it was today maybe you on LinkedIn you put a post out about starting to focus for on backend. So is that something that you feel like? I guess how do you feel when it comes to your front end skills? Do you feel you're at a point now where like I feel confident to call myself a senior dev or some sort of JavaScript master or something, or like how does that feel in a way? Like I've been dealing with Python for a while, and I don't feel I'm a master in Python, even though I've been dealing with it for so long. I'm just kind of curious on your view of you know coding out for 6+ years in JavaScript.
yeah, I don't ever really call myself some kind of expert or master because there's always more to learn. But I kind of feel like within 3 4 years you can learn the majority of what there is to learn in that particular venue. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you may not know everything, but you know enough to get these projects done.
yeah,
Like
for
I've
sure.
been pretty much like the front end lead at my previous company and like this current one, and I've always been blessed to work on completely new projects. So I've been overseeing these projects from the complete scratch. So in terms of the front end, it almost feels like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Making these form based CRUD applications. So me continue to double down on that path, it starts to get kind of boring. And I'm also moving more into an entrepreneurial direction. So
Yeah.
if I really want to make my own application, you have to have a back end unless you want to rely on somebody else. So, I've done projects with back ends in my free time, but I really want to hone in on that because I feel like I'll gain a lot more by looking into the back end, looking into DevOps, than I would just continue to reinforce what I already know, or spending that time on these little edge cases on the front end. So,
Okay. No, which is, I mean, which is cool because you're totally right, man. Once you start, if you want to build your own application, you're gonna have to get familiar with the back end, DevOps, all of that stuff. Again, like how I mentioned earlier, like I'm more of a back end guy, anyways. So for me, all of that is a bit easier. Front end, I deal with because I kind of have to, right? When you're building an app, you got to deal with it. But that's not something that I'm like, yeah, I enjoy doing front end. I enjoy doing back end. But I know when I starting into back end, there's a lot that goes into it, right? Because
yeah,
it's not even just database, or then you got to deal with deployment. Then you got to deal with other services like Nginx or Apache, and things ultimately to consume the requests from the URL. And then of course it comes with if you're gonna have a domain, well now you have to redirect that domain to your server and all. There's a lot of,
yeah,
it's not hard, but I mean there's a lot of moving pieces, right? That relates to deploying an app and doing all the server setup and things of that nature. But yeah, there's a lot that is involved. So what's your back end for this year? Like, are you gonna try to stay with JavaScript since you're already familiar with JavaScript on the back end? Are you gonna learn? Are you gonna focus on another programming language for back end or?
so I'm kind of switching between the two, like ASP.NET Core, because my previous company they did a lot of ASP.NET Core, and some of the projects I'm working on outside of work, all the guys are ASP.NET Core programmers. And I also like Nest.js. It's kind of like it's a backend JavaScript framework that's
Mm-hmm.
very similar to Angular and ASP.NET Core. It's kind of like a mixture of the two. Like the syntax looks like Angular with the decorators and all of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's purely JavaScript, right? It's all JavaScript.
Yeah,
Yeah, Next.js,
TypeScript. Yeah.
TypeScript. Yeah. Okay. And for the .NET, would that be like functional, like F sharp, C sharp, or what would be the language that you would use?
Yeah, I'm gonna just stick with C
C
sharp right
sharp.
now. I don't really want to, wrestle with languages especially when you're trying to get products out the door. Playing around with functional programming, that's something, if I was just learning, wanting to learn something different. I used to play around with functional programming a little bit, like Haskell and some of
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. What was it, Elixir, something like that?
Yep.
But I don't really like. I got so much going on, my mind can't really wrap itself around a new paradigm right now.
So like with C sharp, is that something that you're familiar with today, or that's something that you're pretty much gonna have to learn, I guess. Like get familiar with. Like, do you is C sharp, I guess, a language that you're already familiar with?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with it because I
Okay.
looked into it, because I want to do game programming. So Unity uses C sharp, and
Yep.
the creator of TypeScript, he actually also created C sharp. So C sharp, TypeScript is kind of like a mixture of JavaScript and C sharp. So it's not super difficult to translate between the two. A lot of the logic looks the same. It's just some syntactical differences,
Yep.
and C sharp is compiled versus TypeScript technically is transpiled, so this is not that different.
Yeah, with C sharp, you do have to compile the application. To I worked on a few projects, but not too much. It was actually some years back, but yeah, no. I mean, I actually like think C sharp is a good language.
Hmm.
Um, better than Java in ways. That's kind of where they're kind of very similar. But I I started to learn Java a little bit back in the day. Um, but yeah, that I just kind of I mean, there was really no point at that time. It was like, well, why am I gonna learn this language for? Like, I mean, I think at that time I was just trying to learn, and I just got familiar with my like fundamentals of programming. But it was just one of those languages where I think at the time it was just kind of like, yeah, like Java is used for enterprise applications, so you could work on projects like there's work there. But the more I started like looking into it, I was like, if I really want to do it for that purpose, man, I might as well learn C sharp. C sharp would be more enterprise for big companies because a lot of the big tech companies don't use open source. Well, I mean, I'm gonna say a lot. I've noticed a lot of like big, like your I don't know IBMs or just like those kind of companies. They seem to want to use more like a Java or C sharp, and I never knew why in the beginning, but of course over time I started just kind of at least hearing the reasons, and ultimately it's more so because of the backing, right? These languages are backed by again like Microsoft and Java, what is it, Oracle, and these big companies. So if there is some sort of issue with the language or whatever, ideally I think the mindset is they should be able to address it and fix it, and they have a team to deal with. So it's kind of it just feels more um, reliable, and even companies like I don't really want to say their name just because I don't want to get nobody in trouble or anything. But it's a military contract company that's around here in the area, one of the big ones. So they use Python, for example. Now Python's open source, but they don't use the version that you download in Python.org. There is another version. It's what it is. There's a company called Active State. I think that's what it's called. And what they do is they put a package together, a Python with all the packages that have been tested out, vetted, and making pretty much make sure that there's nothing broken, everything works, fine, and there's no security, whatever, all those issues. And then that's the version that this military contract company uses instead of using the version that most people just go and download. And then again, that's more so because they want the security, you want to call it, of I'm using a version that have been already vetted and tested to be stable, and we're not going to have issues. And if there is, ultimately this company should be able to address those issues, I guess. But yeah, no, that's kind of was what I end up kind of finding out on why they use these languages compared to a JavaScript or just plain old Python.
Exactly. And it makes sense, especially if you're doing government work. You can't just have some kind of problem lingering out there and nobody that you can reach out to and fix it.
But it's interesting though because like again I've been using Python for a while, and at least any issue that I have had has been a developer issue. Like it's my issue. I coded something wrong. I don't think I have ever come across an issue where it was like, well, damn, I coded everything right, but it's the language. The update. Now I do think it happens because I have heard things like, oh, there's this new version that got released, even with Python. But normally like the beta version that got released, and then there was like some little issue that they found. Nothing major, but it was just some little issues here and there. But again, it was released under beta version, so you got to take it for what it is. So I mean, I guess it does happen, but yeah, I have never had that kind of issue though, where like, oh yeah, I'm coding it and I'm doing everything exactly the well, it's proper, but oh, it keeps crashing, it keeps erroring out or whatever because of a flaw in the actual interpreter. Like I never had that issue, but I mean, it does seem like it can happen, and I guess just one of those rare things that happens every once in a while. I guess.
I think it's kind of also like not necessarily the language, but the tools around the language. Like And then, why isn't this IDE working for my developer? He keeps running to this issue. They can just call somebody at Microsoft. Hey, what's going on? I think it's harder with JavaScript or something. Something's going wrong to get everybody on the same page.
Like I feel though when you're dealing with open source, I don't know about JavaScript because I can't really. I'm not sure from the community how good they are. I mean, I know there's a big community there, but I'm just not sure how they are. But I know in the Python community, um, I feel like they're very well informed. Like if you have issues, there's a big community there where you could. And I'm not talking about like, hey, how do I solve this kind of issue? Which there's a community for that too, but more on like the actual developers, the ones that are enhancing the interpreter and doing new releases and things of that nature. Like, there seems to be a good community there, and there, there's issues or whatever it is. They seem to be, at least what I have seen in ways, very responsive, and it's almost like you don't have a phone number to call or nothing like that, but you could find their um their repos, and you could like communicate with somebody, and there'll be some kind of response back. It seems like, um, where I will assume with C sharp, I'm not sure who you even call. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's Microsoft, but I don't know exactly how that works. Like, yeah, that I mean, again, I'm pretty sure there is somebody, because I know whenever one of my previous company, our IT guy, they had an issue with SharePoint, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. This is like some years back before cloud SharePoint Online was even existing. So you had to like buy the license, like the copy, install it on your own on-prem server. Kind of go through that process. And but of course, he was able to call somebody, and they literally got remoted into the server. They fixed the issue, whatever it was, and boom, everything's good to go. So I don't know if that's how it works when it comes to the C sharp language, if there's actually something wrong or not. But yeah, that I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, and I know especially with the tools, all that's Microsoft stuff. The Visual Studio Code and then the Visual Studio and all of that. I think especially those big organizations, especially stuff like banking and stuff, they're risk averse, so they're just gonna go with the so-called standard. Oh, all these other companies using Java. Let's just go with Java. That's kind of like how I feel. It's like not necessarily about using the best technology, but something goes wrong. They can say, "Well, it's not my fault. All these other companies are using it." You know what I mean?
But what's interesting though is like, so I feel like you do have a lot of companies that want to use, like, again, like C sharp or Java for whatever reason. But when you look at the actual tech companies, right, the big guys, your Apple, your Facebook, all of the languages that they use is all open source, right? Swift for Apple, what Kotlin and Python for Google. I think they use Java still a little bit, but I know they have Kotlin, JavaScript, of course, for web. Then they use Python. I know with Netflix, I've heard that they use Python for their APIs. Of course, JavaScript for the UI, and they do use, I want to say Java maybe. I mean, there's another language, but again, they're very diverse, right? It's not like I think at least for them, anyways, whatever fear of, well, we need to use a language for support or whatever. I don't even know that's even existent for some of the big tech companies. They, maybe because you're dealing with actual developers, a handful of developers, that if there is an issue, they'll figure out a solution. They'll fix it, whatever it is, whether it be switching to a different version, a previous version of that language, or whatever, whatever. But they'll figure out a solution compared to maybe a non-tech company. Maybe like a real estate. I don't know. I'm just making up like a real estate company that happens to be real big or something, and they want to use something that's stable, like, oh, we got to use C sharp or something of that sort. Um,
I think with them, they have to be able to attract a stable pool of developers, so they don't want to take a risk of like in my area have enough Python developers, enough Haskell developers. So they said, let's just use the language they teach at the university, Java, C sharp. We have a steady supply of these guys coming. Whereas like tech companies, they're filled with guys that love programming,
Yep.
and the majority of their company is programmers. So these guys have no issue like learning new languages. Whereas like a bank, you're probably gonna attract talent that I'm a C sharp developer. I've been that for 10 years. And I'm gonna just stay as a C sharp developer.
Yeah, yeah, no, and again, that does make some sense too, right? Like, I know a lot of companies want to stick with the language
Mm-hmm.
because then it makes it easier, right? It is tougher, I feel like, if if especially if you're the person that has to keep bouncing around, where 1 month you're working JavaScript, the next month doing C sharp, then the next month doing Golang or whatever, that's not easy for sure. To keep if you have to bounce around to different languages, so.
Yeah, and especially if you have, it's to say like you have like a real estate company, you don't want all your different projects to be in different languages, because you can't have developers bounce from one project to the next. Like I don't know Python, so how am I gonna jump on a Python project once this one is over? I think they kind of think like that.
Well, you're gonna have more cost too, right? Because if you
Right.
really need another developer for that language, now you gotta have two guys when you could have just had one that could bounce over. But so yeah, no, for sure that'll kind of help minimize costs, keeping everything in one language for sure. Which makes sense, right? I know with us, like some of the work that we do, um, everything we use Python for the back end, then of course JavaScript for the front end, and there's a little bit of C sharp that we use for like web service, but pretty much that's about it. Everything's pretty consistent. Python, then of course JavaScript. And those are really the only two languages that we use. Again, if there's a use case to switch up the backend, then you know do it all based off that use case. But in general, at least in my experience, man, when you're dealing with backend and the majority of the language out there is would not have a problem handling, let's say, thousands of requests per minute, even hundreds of thousands of requests per minute. It won't have an issue. I think what would happen, what you will probably see fail first, if it does fail, would be probably database performance on doing all the read and writes and things of that nature. If it's not configured properly or maybe not indexed properly or whatever, that's probably where, if anything, you will see some bottlenecks first. Then of course after that, maybe it's a language, but at least by then though, if you're dealing with like millions of requests per minute on an app, then that's at least that your app is doing good because it's being hit a lot. And short term, you could always give it more resource, but then maybe by then that's where it becomes a change of plan and redo the back end to another language type deal that's more efficient for the amount of requests that you're getting for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. So we're getting close to toward the end of the stream. So just kind of before we finish off, what are your plans for this year? Like what I know you mentioned you're gonna get familiar to back end. Do you have any other plans that you're gonna focus on for 2023 that you're trying to get done?
Yeah, so I'm really trying to move into a more entrepreneurial path, with the Coder Conversation podcast and developing apps outside of work. Because if you just look recently, you've seen all these massive layoffs. Like you've been on LinkedIn, it's like 80% of the posts are people looking
Yep.
for a new job. They're being let go from Microsoft, from Amazon. These are the big prestigious companies, and they were just let go just like that. So, how's that going to affect the market when you're competing against guys from fame and
Mm-hmm.
they're competing for those open jobs? It's kind of like a downward pressure on salaries and all of that. So, I really feel like you just see how disposable you are in corporate America. So, you have to start making inroads into doing your own thing. Like you don't necessarily have to quit your job and try to start a business, but in your free time, do something entrepreneurial, make that attempt, and that is really what I'm attempting to do. That's pretty much my focus. Like the podcast is a big focus, and then launching a couple of these applications.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Because you're totally right, man. You want to try to build as many streams of income as you can. I'm a big believer in that, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I started doing YouTube as well. Um, to help, a lot of my videos is more like I get a lot of requests, so a lot of the video that I make related to like, you know, Python, SharePoint, this or that or whatever it is, it's because I got a request from a viewer like, hey, can you make a video over X, Y, and Z, for example. So you know, a lot of the stuff I've been making have been for viewers based on requests that I get. But I'm a big believer of you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Damn it, I just had it in my mind. Uh, ex- not exposing yourself, but putting yourself out there from a sense of like again, whether like in my case YouTube, but there's many other whatever it is, could be podcasts, could be YouTube videos, whatever. And branding, that was the word I'm looking at. Branding, like self branding, right? Branding yourself.
Yeah,
I mean, you see with all of these, a lot of the YouTubers nowadays, Mr. Beast is a good example. I mean, he built a brand where people know who he is. Now he's starting to build businesses on top of his brand with his
yeah,
burger place and, of course, his YouTube videos and other stuff. Dude, he has like a few businesses operating right now that are just, they're not really mainstream because everybody knows them for his YouTube videos, like his giveaways. But dude, he has a lot. There's a lot that he's doing, and I'm starting to see other people. You got like Jake Paul and Logan Paul, right? All of
yeah,
the branding aspect of it open up opportunities to WWE and boxing and Prime Drink and whatever. But and again, they're on the high end for sure. But there's a lot of people, even more on the lower end, that are building a nice little audience, right? Nice little following, 10,000, 50,000, kind of following, and that's where the branding comes in. That you have a core following, and it opens up opportunities, other business opportunities as well, or even just open up work opportunities from a sense of somebody wants to hire you because they see what, or they want to work with you because they're able to see what you're all about, type deal. I mean, again, well, whatever it is, but for me, it was more for the branding of it, and that's kind of like for me this year. It's kind of, I'm doubling down on YouTube for sure, and gonna hit it hard and see what I can make out of it by the end of this year. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm a big fan of, but it's tough. I would say that like it is tough because um, I think a lot of people start, you know, posting or making videos or whatever it is, and what happens, it does. Most people, it eventually fades off. It could be for different reasons. Maybe they start doing something else that's more productive, perhaps, or they just you're not seeing the results, so it is becomes more easier to just kind of stop it and be done with it. But man, I do feel it's remember like Mr. Beast, he did a podcast. He mentioned like for people that are getting in, and his story was, I feel like he did not become famous overnight either. He been making YouTube videos when he was like what 13 or whatever for like X amount of years to eventually, of course, he got to the point where he kind of blew up. But one of the things that he mentioned was like the first 100 video that you make, just think of them as trash. Like make them, put them out there. Don't focus too much on the editing and doing everything perfect. Just put them out there. And 'cause what's going to happen is as you start making videos, you start finding your own process that will speed line what you're doing, optimize what you're doing, and things will just get better, naturally over time. And then on top of that, it's normally takes about 100 videos where eventually then you start getting traction, right? People start
yeah.
joining, and so it's one of those deals where just it's a matter of pushing videos and try to push some quality videos, but at the same time, it's like doesn't have to be perfect either. Just put out there, try to get at least the message right. As long as the message is valid, that's really what matters to begin with.
first year or so, the first year or two, you're not going to get a whole bunch of views. It can be frustrating, but you got to ignore the views.
Yep.
But just for me sticking with the just for me sticking with the podcast, I met like a whole bunch of amazing people that I wouldn't have otherwise met. I met you, Ryan Pulliam, a whole bunch of different people. And like for me, I've been noticing a lot of like CEOs, CTOs, stuff like that, like
Hmm.
looking at me, reaching out to me, and it's because of my posts on LinkedIn and my podcast. Bro, I don't have like a bunch of numbers, but that visibility
Yeah.
just gives me exposure to the right audience.
Exactly, right? I mean that's the thing that really matters right there, right? Though that it may not go out to millions of viewers, but even if it goes out to 10, those 10 could be some key viewers that are watching that could, open up either connections, how you mentioned, or opportunities in the future. Who knows, right? So
Okay.
that's very beneficial for sure. So all right, man. So I know we already hit that 1 hour mark, and again, man, I do appreciate it for being on the stream, and yeah. So normally I do my stream. It's a 2 hour stream. First half I normally talk about different topics. In this case, didn't kind of interviewed you. Second half, which is the next hour, we kind of go over and I actually solve some problems with the viewers. They ask me coding issues or AWS issues like, hey, can we test this out or can we solve this? So I'll literally bring up my editor, open up AWS, and we start going at it and trying to see what we could solve live. So
Um,
that's kind of like what we do, what I've been doing here on the on my stream, anyways. So trying to do a little bit different, interact with the viewers, solving problems. That's kind of like the go. So I saw problems off screen for sure, but I try to solve some live on screen, and as well. So we'll see if we get some questions related to that. But again, man, I do appreciate it for joining the stream, and yeah, man, I'll keep in touch, and we'll talk later.
yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. I'll definitely catch up with you.
All right, man, take care.
All right, man.
Peace.
Peace.
What up, guys? So again, that was Kevin Miller that was just on. Man, I do appreciate him for joining, and hopefully, guys, y'all found what he was talking about, beneficial. Hopefully somebody out there, right, that's watching could relate and could see how everybody's journey is different, guys. How we get in to become software developers, which I'm assuming most of y'all that are here on the stream joining are software developers, or at least trying to become a software developer of some sort, right? Or even DevOps, something in that field. But it's we all got our own paths on how we get there. Um, it's not easy. Sometimes there's some challenges. There's some doors that may be closed, but you know what? You gotta find out. You gotta make. Sometimes you gotta make your own opportunity, man. You gotta make your own opportunity to get your foot in the door, and that may mean a lot of hours learning, teaching yourself, things of that nature, right? So, but don't give up, guys. Like that's one of the things I would tell you. If you really, really want to get your foot in the door, you gotta be persistent. You gotta keep at it. You don't have to burn yourself either. You don't have to be trying to code or learn how to code for like 8 hours a day. But you gotta spend some time, right? Give up Netflix if that's what you watch. Give up gaming if that's what you're doing. Whatever it is, right? But even if I get it, sometimes it's tough. A lot of the times, especially if you're a family man, right? You got a family. You gotta work a job somewhere, maybe at a warehouse. I say warehouse because that's where I came from, guys. That was my background initially. And then you come home, and a lot of the time it's like, oh, I just want to rest, relax. But if you really, really want to get your foot in the door, allocate some time, man. 2, 3 hours a day, something, right? Make it a habit. Eventually, that 2, 3 hours will become normal. Missing a show here and there, not watching the game or not watching the new movie that just got released or whatever. All of that becomes secondary. Like, once you make it a habit to focus and put energy. I say software development, become like software um, development, but it could be anything, guys. Maybe you're trying to start your own business, you own a restaurant, whatever, right? You're trying to whatever it is that you're trying to do. So keep that in mind, guys. Like, you got to put um, allocate time, make it a habit, and that habit eventually will transform itself to become a something that just naturally happens. You study and you learn and you whatever just becomes normal. Once it becomes normal, dude, you know that you're golden because now you don't have to make yourself. You just do it naturally, just like the way you naturally gotta eat. So you just eat when it's time to eat. Well, now naturally you're learning because it's part of your life, right? To learn and continue to learn and push forward. And again, mental too, man. You gotta have a positive mindset. In order to have a positive mindset, you gotta stay focused on the good things, right? The great things. I'll focus on that. Um, so, yeah, guys. Hopefully that helps out, man. Again, appreciate Kevin Miller for being on, and hopefully his story, his background, some of y'all could relate and benefits y'all. All right, guys. Well, let me know if y'all have any questions on trying to solve any problems, right? If there's anything that y'all want me to review, y'all want me to solve, that's what we do here on Thursdays. You have any code you want me to review? If you want me to test something out, be more than happy to walk through that and see what we could do on that piece. And if I don't have any requests, then I'm gonna share some sequel stuff with y'all if that's the case. So let me go ahead and check. Let me switch screens. Damn, I need to switch my mouse. So one of the things that I received a appreciate, man, thanks for the we got a new subscriber, Frame WBP, appreciate it, man, appreciate it. So one of the things that I've been doing testing on, put it that way. I've been doing some testing on, has been um, client ID, secret ID for the SharePoint. So I got a few requests, guys, about hey, can you make a video related to that? And I've been doing some testing related to that, and I got it to work where I'm able to get back my access token. So that piece I had success with. The piece that I did not have success with, and it's not going to work, it's going to be related to. Let me see if I could share with y'all. I'm trying to see if I'm able to share or no or not. Um. Oh damn! I closed out of that window. Let me open up a new window. Yeah, I should be able to share this with y'all, and it should be fine. I mean, I am gonna be exposing my secret, but I'm gonna delete that anyways. So, and I do that. This is my sandbox SharePoint anyways. So, there's nothing of value in there. Put it that way. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Okay, there it goes. Make this a bit bigger. So I'm using this package, this MSAL package. And so this package this is where I would provide my client ID and my secret, right? And then this would be to acquire token for client. Now here's the thing. This actually works. So as an example, is this activated? It is. So let me go ahead and run this. Python test py. So if I run this, see I got an error message. But if I scrolled up, boom, here's my token. I received my token, got my access token. So all of this, and this is the part that I was trying to solve initially. So this I got to work, which is fine. The problem here is the package that I'm using, because this is the package that I've been using for all of my other videos. Let's see. This video here, for example, these Python download files from SharePoint, again using Office 365 RESTful package. So all the video that I'm using this package, this Office 365, and you could find it over here, not there. Yeah, either way, I'm using this package. The problem is that package does, even though it does have a function for access token, right? In order for me to establish a connection with access token, the problem is, and we take a look at this, it wants a token response. And I gave it a token response, which is this up here, from JSON. But, you know, of course, I'm getting this error message, this 401 client error. So looking at the documentation, this is where it becomes, you know, important when again dealing with documentation. Where is it at? Do you have way too many tabs open? Is it in here? There it goes. In here with token. Let me click on this. Nope. Damn, where did I see it at? Let me see. Trying to think which file that I see this in. You know what? My bad. I know where. It was an example. So if I go under, let's look at the examples. I'm gonna go to SharePoint, and then there's an example here. Connect with app only principal. Right? Nope, that's not it. My bad. It's AAD principal. So ultimately, let me make this bigger. So I went through the process where I created my client ID, client secret. I did all of that through SharePoint. So, and I'll make a video related to that on how you got to get that set up in SharePoint first. So once I got that set up in SharePoint, then that's kind of when I went to, again, acquire token, and then ultimately use the token with this access token function, which should establish a connection. Now I didn't. I received a 401 error. Then eventually, again, this is why it's important to read documentation. when I started looking at the documentation, at least in their example, they mentioned on here, um, will return 401 error, right? Using client credentials, app only access, which is what I created an app only access client ID. It will return a 401 error, meaning this flow is not supported. It's blocked. Then, of course, speaks of unless this and this. The AAD app is explicitly granted access via a ACS. So I took a look at the documentation. I did not find nothing where you could explicitly um, give access to it in the documentation. So which is Azure Access Control. Um, so see, I went through all of this process here. Set the permissions, trusted the application, but I couldn't find nowhere where it said to trust. And but by default, it's not. Again, going back to the example here, and this is the error message that I'm ultimately getting, is this 401 error message, which again the documentation shows that I will be getting this error message. So kind of going back, this is the error message that I got: 401 client error, unauthorized. Dude, I cannot see what's over here. From URL, blah blah blah. Okay. So either way, though, what I have here, again, this piece does work. It is the access token that I gave it. Just kind of give an example. If I give it a wrong, that's a C. Let me change it to a D. Wrong, right? It's the wrong access ID. I should get back an error message saying unauthorized. Makes perfect sense, right? But if I, give it the right client ID, it is doing what it should do, which is I'm able to acquire my token and I'm able to receive an access token. So all of that worked perfectly, right? I mean, I there's other applications that have integrated with concept, very basic, straightforward, right? You send your ID, secret, and then you will get back your token, and that's what's happening here, right? I'm getting back my token. So everything worked as expected. The problem is this package works fine. The package that's not working is this Office 365 package, which is what I've been using. And then again, how I mentioned, if I look at their example, their documentation shows if I'm using client credential flow, which I am, it will return a 401 error message, and that's what I'm getting now. I am getting back this 401 error message. So I think on this piece I'm kind of stuck. So I have two options. I'm gonna either look into see what I could figure out in the Office 365 package, right? Because I want to try to stay as much as possible with the package. If I can't, then what I'm gonna have to do is well, I guess don't put it this way. What I need to look into is see if there's a way to where it says ADD and explicitly grant access via ASC, which I looked at the page, and again, which is the Azure Access Control, but I couldn't find nothing here. That showed me how to allow permissions, I guess. Grant access via Azure AD app only. All right, let's take a look at this. Grant access via Azure AD app only. Dude, this is the same page I was looking at. Oh, it's not. Slightly different. Set up Azure AD app for apps only. So this is to get a signed certificate. That's not what I'm trying to do here. Nope, that's not it. Set up app only access to SharePoint, which I did do that. What are the limitations with using app only? Updating, blah blah blah. Creating modern team site does not support app only. Creating communication site and support in app only context, but on user profile bulk update. Let's see. Oh, this is what I just had, right? So this is the same page as this other one. Yep, same page. When a user manages them to disuse, blah blah blah. This had to work fine. However, and we recently needed to disable guest access. Oh, this is what I was just looking at right now. Nope, that's not what I want. Let's see. Damn. So let me. So one of the I guess what I may end up doing is. So let's take a look at this package real quick. So this is the Microsoft Authentication Library for Python, right? And that's what I'm using. Just kind of. Damn, it's kind of big. Let me make it a bit smaller. Enabled applications to integrate with the Microsoft Identity Platform. It allows you to sign in users or apps with Microsoft. Yep, which is what I was able to do, no problem, and obtain tokens to call Microsoft API, such as Microsoft Graph, on your or your own API registered with the Microsoft Identity Platform. It is built using industry standards, OS2. Yep, all of that's fine. So what I may need to do is I know this piece works, right? And I'm comfortable with this piece. So I'm comfortable with the piece of creating access token and security and secret token and SharePoint. I was able to test that out. That works fine. I'm able to use it using this package to be able to receive my access token. That works fine. The approach, and again, I was trying to avoid this because I was trying to do it within the Office 365 package. But if that's not going to work, what I may end up doing is using the Microsoft API. So let's see. A web app that calls web APIs, which is ultimately what I want here. No, not a web app. In this case, it would be a daemon app. something that kind of runs in the background, right? Move next steps, app registration. Okay, what are the next step? App code configuration. Which again, I have all of this already. Yep, so this I have. And that works fine. Acquire a token for the app, which I did already in my example. Next step, calling the web API. This is what I wanted to see, calling the API. So here's our header to provide our token. All this makes perfect sense. URL to the API. So what I need to pretty much find a list of different calling a web API from a daemon application. Microsoft SharePoint API URL. So that's what I could find. To access a specific site collection using the following construct. So it will be API sites, blah blah blah. In case, I'm trying to think of what this actually provides back. So let me copy this. I am SharePoint.com. Okay, so these are all the different APIs. So let me go ahead and copy this. Alright, cool. So now I got it a lot cleaner. Let's see, what is this? Site recycle, blah blah blah. Yeah, this does not have everything. There's some stuff that's missing, I could tell. Let me go back. Let's see, retrieve the title of the site, web title. So let's do something basic, right? Like that, right? Web title. Create a list of sample data. So this case would be site underscore API, then it'll be something like this. So let's put something together then. And let's test it out. So in my case, it would be HTTP I am Lou SharePoint.com site underscore API. And let's say we do web. And let's do list. My bad, not web. Let's do list to be able to show all the different sites that we have, right? So let me try to think. Let me open up Postman. Let me switch workspaces. Oh, there's a new update. Let me go ahead and update it because I'm pretty sure my version's very outdated for sure. All right, cool. So let me go ahead and put that in here. What I'm gonna do next is, so this access token is still good. You could tell here's the time that it takes to expires. So we still have a lot of time. Normally it's like a lot of the time it's an hour. It just depends on whatever it is, but so let me go ahead and copy this. Oops. So authentication would be bear token. Boom, that's in there. Cool. What else do I need in here? Let me see. This is my header, which I have that. JSON, do I have that in here? This is going to be for what? Accept. So let me. Okay, that's fine. The content type, that's what I was trying to find. Go ahead and add that in here. And this would be application, JSON. This would be a GET request. Yeah, it should be a GET request. The request was not valid, or is okay. So damn it, is sites. I think it's sites, right? Or maybe not. It is site. Let me make sure my token's valid. So let me go ahead and put this bad boy in Postman. Okay. Doing a get. Trying to think, this should be HTTPS. Guess it doesn't matter. So I am getting an unauthorized status. So let me find something because I think I'm trying to get something on the information I'm trying to get. It's more higher level. I think the access that the client ID specifically site specific. So let me find something that I could API that's more related to the site itself. So SharePoint REST API version 1, working with lists, complete basic operations, reading data with SharePoint. Let's see. So SharePoint REST API version 2. So I have a version 2. So this is Graph REST API. Okay, so this is different. Alright, let's stick with version 1. Here's the thing, I gotta specify my SharePoint site, but I don't see it in the URL nowhere. It says the site URL. Hmm. Let me see something real quick. Just kind of curious right now. So if I were to take this, what is my site called? There we go. So it cites development. This is the specific site that ultimately I'm trying to access. But that's not what the documentation shows anyways. Hmm. Let's see. Working with folders and files. Again, like all of this, man, share documents. But again, I'm trying to see. I need it to be for a specific site. Hmm. So let me see, man. Because if I do need to specify it would be sites. Damn it. Development. Similar, blah blah blah. So I'm not. It's not authenticating. Yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, it shouldn't even matter. It should work. But it's not working. Hmm. So let's see. Hello, I'm sharing. He had established a team and file and shared files, but I cannot see it as well or as download it. What should I do? Hmm. We have the same problem that you described, and we have figured out that this error is produced because previous configured SharePoint settings which do not allow guests to access the data. By changing the setting to new and existing guests via SharePoint Admin Center, we were able to get rid of this. Well, damn. Okay, I was thinking maybe I may just go down the path of, dude, because I'm getting back a token. Right, I'm getting back my access token, as we can see here. It's, I mean, let me see which client ID this is. Maybe that plays that may have to that may play a role into this. So what I have here is the bottom one. Okay, so let me try this one. Again, guys, I'm sharing all this because I'm going to delete it anyways. Plus um, this SharePoint, I'm not concerned if somebody tries to be creative and hack it or do anything of that nature because it is a sandbox environment anyways for SharePoint. There's no files in there that have values. Somebody hacks it, doesn't matter. Does not matter, guys. So let me go ahead and okay, so nope, still the same error message. Damn, okay. So I'm gonna have to look into this some more some other time. The URL seems valid, It is a GET request. Everything seems fine, but I'm getting a 401. Pretty much, it's not authenticating. Um, Damn. Hmm. And man, this has been kicking my butt, man. I spent a lot of time yesterday trying to figure this out. Um, and I'm stuck. If any of y'all in watching this, guys, if y'all are familiar with setting up, because I went through the process to set up client IDs and secret IDs in SharePoint. I don't think that's the problem. I could be wrong. Maybe it is, but dude, I'm not getting an error message though. When I do use it over here, I am able to in my code. I'm able to receive my access token, which is what I'm printing out, and I'm getting it. Um, yeah, just not sure why it's not working. It may be something as simple as maybe there's some kind of configuration I need to enable in my admin SharePoint admin portal or something. I'm just not sure, right? That's why I need to read into the docs and go through that some more and try to figure out what it is. So like I went through this whole process. Um, hmm. Damn, I don't know, man. I'm stuck. I'm stuck on this for sure. Again, I'm gonna assume that what I have is valid, and it's probably some kind of setting. But if any of y'all are familiar with maybe some kind of setting that I need enabled in my SharePoint admin portal or something, let me know, man. Let me know, cause dude, I've been stuck trying to figure this out. Been stuck for sure. Sometimes, man, when you get stuck, you gotta just move away from it, work on something else, and eventually, hopefully, right, you'll solve this problem with in due time. So that's the plan. We'll see. Um, all right, guys. So we're getting to that time, about to be 11. And again, guys, man, I do appreciate those of y'all who joined the stream. Hopefully, y'all got to see the guest that I had on, you know, and got to kind of listen to Kevin Miller background, and hopefully it benefits some of y'all, man. What some of the things that he mentioned. Um, Again, guys, I on Thursdays I'm here on YouTube from 9 p.m. On Fridays I stream on Twitch from 9 p.m. as well. So I'll be on Twitch tomorrow, and then what I one of the so something I may end up doing a little bit different on Twitch is I don't know if I'll do it on this channel, but I'm gonna do it on Twitch anyways. Normally Twitch is kind of more laid back. We may do a little bit of gaming. We talk tech, GPUs, things of that nature. We talk code as well. Um, I'm working on some projects, so I may end up just streaming that. as I code. If people have questions, of course they could ask me questions. So I'm not gonna be solving problems like on that stream, but I'll be sharing some stuff that I'm working on. At least whatever I can share, anyways. Maybe if there's stuff that I can't share, then of course I won't, like passwords or things of that nature. But whatever I can, I will. So I'm thinking of doing that in my streams on when I stream on Twitch. Different, right? There are a lot of people that game, and we may still game every once in a while, but I think I may include that into the mix. So, cause there's some stuff that I'm working on, and just work with it through y'all guys, right? Maybe if I'm stuck on something, if y'all have insight, dude, y'all could help me out. But that's the plan, anyways. Again, guys, man, I do appreciate it for joining the live stream. Um, Again, I'll be on Twitch tomorrow, 9 p.m. Central, and then I may be on Sunday. Maybe it is football Sunday. I'm a Cowboy fan, so I'm going to be watching the Cowboys. They're playing at 7:30 Sunday night, so it's going to be a late game. So I'm hoping we win, but I may be on Sunday on Twitch, anyways. And again, guys, appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining the stream, and y'all take care.